Illinois, the town's council passes a motion to provide a $5.4 million settlement to Rockford native Alan Beaman.
Beaman was accused of killing his former girlfriend and Illinois State student Jennifer Lockmiller in 1993. She was strangled with a cord and stabbed with scissors at her apartment on North Main Street. 2 years later, Beaman was convicted and sentenced to 50 years in prison. He served 13 before the Illinois Supreme Court overturned the conviction, and former Governor Pat Quinn pardoned him. As part of the settlement, the town of Normal admits no wrongdoing.